definitely can hear the wind howl. I mean, it's loud.
It's like a wild river. You got 2 and 3 foot waves that are rolling over you. That's when I knew we were going down.
When you see your neighbors' houses just float away.
We wanted to leave right then, and we couldn't do anything about it.
I thought all of them were dead. There was not a doubt in my mind.
From the Weather Channel, this is Storm Stories with meteorologist Jim Cantore.
September 15th, 2004. Hurricane Ivan has been thrashing the Caribbean for 7 days. More than 60 people are dead, and Ivan isn't stopping. Forecasts from the National Hurricane Center originally showed the Category 5 monster heading toward Tampa Bay. But a strong ridge of high pressure has steered it farther west. Its new target? The Florida-Alabama border. "30 miles east of the state line, in Pensacola, hundreds of residents already have evacuated. But not Johnny Hawkins. He lives in the picturesque neighborhood of Grand Lagoon with his girlfriend Betty Jernigan and her mother Arvie. Today their best friend Rosanna Robertson, or Xana, is visiting. They've all decided to ride out the hurricane together because 82-year-old Arvie is bedridden.
She took a lot of care, and you just couldn't take her to a shelter or something because she couldn't have been comfortable.
Johnny isn't worried. He's lived here for more than 40 years and is a hurricane veteran.
I lived here when Camille hit Mississippi. And with this hurricane here, we didn't expect anything different. You get a lot of destruction, but it's nothing devastating.
Still, as Ivan barrels toward the Gulf Coast, Johnny does his best to make his house hurricane-proof.
Where the winds can pick up chairs or pieces of wood and send it flying through the air. And so that's the first thing, is you get everything put up and tied up.
Less than a mile up the road, another Grand Lagoon family is preparing for Ivan. Dick LaCour and his wife Cynthia have lived in this area of Pensacola for more than 20 years. Like Johnny, they've seen hurricanes come and go. That's why when they upgraded their home in 2001, they made it stronger than the law required.
You learn to respect a hurricane, and you learn to prepare for it. And when we built this house, that was what we had in mind.
Today, as an extra precaution, they're putting fitted pieces of plywood on the windows. Their 21-year-old son, Matt, drove back from college in Louisiana to help.
We boarded up every window. It took us a while to fit every piece. We knew we could get it done before the hurricane was going to get here. And we were just going at our own pace.
Our mood was not one of panic. It was a mood of watch, be careful, do what you need to do to protect yourself.
Around 3 p.m., Dick's daughter Valerie and her husband Greg hunker down at the family's home, the safest place they know.
She so candidly put it, I know who built this house, so I'm going to stay in this house. We had all the food that we needed. We had the electrical system that we needed.
We sat there and had a couple drinks and played dominoes with the family, and everyone was just trying to have fun.
5 p.m. The winds in the Grand Lagoon neighborhood are strengthening. Johnny Hawkins watches the Gulf from his window.
The water's starting to come over the roads and starting to come into the yard. I'm just keeping an eye on the water rising. Everything, is standard hurricane weather.
But there's nothing standard about Ivan. It's a large hurricane that has churned the Gulf into a frenzy. And as darkness falls, the hurricane changes track slightly to the east. With winds charting at 135 miles an hour, Ivan is a Category 4 hurricane. And now it's heading straight toward Grand Lagoon. 10:30 p.m. The power is out in Grand Lagoon, and residents who didn't evacuate are regretting their decisions. At Betty and Johnny's 2-story frame house, fierce winds shatter the windows, and a surge of water floods the first floor. Johnny rushes Betty, Xana, and Arvie to an upstairs bathroom.
I put them in the bathtub, and I put my back against the door, braced against the wall to try to keep the water from coming in there.
The house begins to buckle, and Johnny knows it's about to collapse.
There was no doubt that we're fixing to go in the water. At that time, Betty asked me if we were going to die. I told her no.
Less than a mile north, the LaCours watch as the churning waves creep into the yard. They feel safe because their brick home sits on a slight hill, unlike most of the surrounding houses. Now they're hoping their neighbors evacuated.
We started to see a lot of debris coming up. I mean, we saw like pieces of houses.
I told my wife that there's been some significant damage here because that's not the kind of thing people leave in their backyard.
That's when we started to get real scared. We started checking everything.
14 miles northeast, Rob Duerstock and a team of volunteer firefighters have set up a temporary base in a large warehouse.
Hearing the wind, I think that was probably the scariest, as you could literally hear the transformers pop around the building.
911 calls are pouring in. Then at 1:08 a.m., one comes from Grand Lagoon.
I'm at 5754 Grand Lagoon. We're in the bathroom right now.
With the bathroom walls of his house crumbling, Johnny makes a last-ditch attempt. But even as he calls 911, he knows it's too late.
We've lost the roof. All the windows are blown out. There's nothing y'all can do for us, I'm sure.
911 dispatch contacts Rob Duerstock and his firefighters at the warehouse.
There was a house in Grand Lagoon. They had 4 people in it. It was being washed away, and they were still in the house.
But Rob and his team are trapped. Ivan is still a Category 4 hurricane with winds estimated at 135 miles an hour.
We wanted to leave right then, and we couldn't do anything about it. We were advised that we would be stationed where we were, stuck where we were, until the winds got below 50-mile-an-hour winds.
1:30 a.m., Thursday, September 16th. Betty, Zena, and Arvi are crammed into the bathtub. Inside the house, the water is 15 feet deep, lapping at the floor of the second-story bathroom. As the roof falls in, Johnny thinks about diving into the water to protect himself, but he hesitates.
I was afraid if I went in the water that I'd never see him again. So I just dove in on top of them.
Suddenly the tub flips over, spilling everyone into the floodwaters. When Johnny comes up for air, he realizes his house is gone, the 3 women with it.
There was not a doubt in my mind. Betty and all of them were dead.
Johnny scrambles to keep his own head above water.
I'm thinking the whole time, I'm going to grab hold of the first thing I see.
He swept through the darkness past an old cedar tree in his front yard. He manages to grab a branch.
I would turn to try to look back towards the house, but the wind was blowing so hard it was just like being in a sandblaster.
As Ivan makes landfall, it weakens to a Category 3. But the winds and storm surge still tear at Johnny.
I'm thinking about Betty, and I'm thinking about my grandchildren. One of the things that give me the strength.
Less than a mile north, the LaCour family huddles together in the corner of Matt's second-floor bedroom. Their sturdy brick house is holding up.
We would periodically go downstairs to see if the windows had broken, and fortunately for us, that never happened.
In the darkness, they lock hands and wonder about the Grand Lagoon families who might not be so lucky.
There was no way to get help to anybody in that storm. It was very eerie to know that you're sitting there and things for you could get worse, but for them, it's already been over.
When you see your neighbors' houses just float away, it was very scary. The tension in the room, you could have cut with a knife.
By 4 a.m., conditions have quieted a bit. Ivan is moving north toward Alabama, and winds near Grand Lagoon have dropped to around 70 miles an hour. Matt creeps downstairs and shines a flashlight out the window.
I was just looking at the debris, just to make sure no windows were broken or anything.
As he peers at the unrecognizable landscape, Matt is startled.
And I hear a scream for help. I didn't think there was any possible way there could be a human out there during this. I just thought it was a wind.
But instinct tells Matt it's something more. He wades out into the storm's muck, Then he sees a man in the bushes. The man is half-clothed, bloody, and screaming.
He said, please help my family. My family, they're still out there. We gotta go help them. He told us he lost his girlfriend and his mom and one of their friends. It took us a while for him to stop crying. We asked him his name. His name was Johnny Hawkins.
"4:30 a.m., Thursday, September 16th, 2004. In the Grand Lagoon area of Pensacola, Florida, hundreds of houses have been toppled by Hurricane Ivan. Dick LaCour and his family are at home in one of the only structures still standing. Their reinforced brick house has survived Ivan's 100-mile-an-hour winds. But the drama isn't finished. The home has become a refuge for a less fortunate man.
He was sitting there crying. This guy was sitting there crying the whole time.
Johnny Hawkins hasn't seen his girlfriend, Betty Jernigan, her mother, Arvie, or their friend, Xana Robertson, since the house they were in collapsed 4 hours ago.
I kind of broke down because there was not a doubt in my mind. Betty and all of them were dead.
We were all like heartbroken because we couldn't comprehend how it'd feel to lose half of our family during a storm.
What Johnny doesn't know is that less than a mile away, Betty and Xana are alive, clinging to debris in Ivan's still raging winds.
We're underneath the water, and I don't know how long it was because it seemed like it went real fast.
I remember going under several times. I thought, it's my time to die. Then all of a sudden, as I came out of the water, I grabbed onto something and just held on for dear life.
We come up from underwater, and that is the last time Xana said to me, I can't fight any longer. I'm giving up now.
Betty hasn't seen her 82-year-old mother, Arvie, since the house collapsed.
I did not let go of my mother. Something pulled our hands apart.
I knew Miss Arvie probably hadn't made it because she was so weak and her heart was bad.
I knew my mother was dead. I knew it.
With Arvie gone, Betty and Xana hold fast to each other. They cling to the debris halfway in and halfway out of the water for 8 grueling hours.
I would just cry and go into hysterics. Don't let go of me. I'm just freezing to death.
The conditions were really bad. I think one time I grabbed her hair to be sure, because I called her name and she didn't respond.
At the LaCour's house, unaware of the life and death struggle less than a mile away, Johnny is close to collapse himself. Dick LaCour calls the police, but no one can respond until the storm subsides.
It was just a matter of holding on for him and for us just to try and keep him as calm as possible.
We gave him a blanket, a pillow, and just try to make him feel as much at home as we could.
7 a.m. Rob Duerstock and his fire team are camped out at a warehouse waiting for orders to start rescue operations. The orders don't come, but the rescuers can't sit still, knowing there may be injured people caught in the aftermath.
We couldn't sit around waiting. It could have been somebody's mother, grandmother. These are our friends, these are our neighbors, these are the people that we know.
The team drives directly to the Grand Lagoon neighborhood, the point of origin of last night's 911 call from Johnny Hawkins.
I'm at 5754 Grand Lagoon. We're in the bathroom right now. We've lost the roof. All the windows are blown out. There's nothing y'all can do for us, I'm sure.
Our energy and our adrenaline was really focused on helping them, almost like shaking up a can of Coke and opening it and letting it explode.
Rob and his colleague, Randy Burleson, arrive at Grand Lagoon and make their way through the rubble. The area is so badly damaged, the two-man search team can't tell which house is which.
We were kind of in awe. I mean, it was just amazing. It was worse than what we imagined, and we imagined complete devastation.
30 minutes later, they pull up to what they think is the right address. They start combing through the shards of wood and glass of a wrecked house. Then, through the still screaming wind, they hear a voice.
It was a high-pitched shriek. It wasn't a cry. It wasn't help. It was just more of an agony cry, moan.
And I looked at Rob. I said, "Did you hear that?" It was unbelievable.
Rob and Randy wade through the waist-high water, pulling away huge pieces of debris.
We could not see anything. We were just kind of following the voices.
I said, "We're not going to leave you. I just need to know where you're at."
Then, as the men make their way around a tree, they find Betty Jernigan sitting on top of a smashed roof, surrounded by water and rubble. Right behind her, her best friend, Xana Robertson.
I think if you'd been looking at me, you would have just seen a look of profound relief. I was never so glad to see people in all my life.
But Betty is less responsive. After 8 hours of battling the wind and water, hypothermia is setting in.
She was shaking so bad, then she went to a point to where she just started babbling, and we knew then she was in bad shape.
We knew that she was in very serious condition, and we had to get her out as quick as possible. We reported back to our assistant chief, and we said, "Listen, we've got 2 victims. We need boats, we need kayaks, we need whatever we can find to get these people out of here."
There's not enough time to wait for proper rescue equipment, so the firefighters improvise with 2 kayaks they find in the street. Rob and Randy lift Betty onto a makeshift backboard and pull her to safety. Next, they extricate Xana. That's when they find a body. Betty's 82-year-old mother, Arvie.
We knew that she was deceased, right there. So we did what we could to cover her up where she was.
The firemen don't tell the 2 women of their sad discovery.
We wanted both of them to focus on themselves and focus their strength on their bodies. So we did not let them know that we had already found her.
But as they move Betty toward the rescue truck, she says she knows her mother is dead and begs them to look for the body of her boyfriend, Johnny.
Now, y'all go look for Johnny and let me know. I'm sure he's dead, but I think he might be near us. You've got to find Johnny.
Hours later at a nearby hospital, when Betty does learn her mother's body has been found, finding Johnny becomes even more important.
I was already planning his funeral along with Mother. I thought I'd have a double funeral. I didn't believe Johnny was alive. There was no way he could be alive.
Thursday, September 16th, 2004. As the sun rises over Pensacola, the extent of Hurricane Ivan's rampage becomes clear. In total, 8 people are dead and thousands of homes destroyed. In the Grand Lagoon neighborhood, Johnny Hawkins is convinced his girlfriend, Betty Jernigan, is dead. Then at noon, he hears from his daughter.
She called me, and that's when I found out Betty was alive.
Betty is at the Baptist Hospital, Pensacola. She's exhausted and has given up hope that Johnny's alive.
Here comes Johnny walking in the door, and I couldn't believe it. If he had not walked in the door, I wouldn't have believed it. It was just wonderful.
No, I couldn't believe it. It was very emotional. She didn't know I was alive, and I was tickled.
He hugged her for a long time, and they were crying, and he said, "Thank God you guys are alive."
February 2005. Grand Lagoon is still in tatters. Temporary blue roofs dot the landscape. The LaCour family home is one of the few still standing, but that doesn't mean life is anything like it was before Ivan.
There are no people living here. It's totally different and totally changed.
I don't believe that I will ever underestimate Mother Nature ever again. She can do whatever she would want to, whenever she wants to, and it's all for, that's it.
After the storm, Johnny, Betty, and Xana stayed together at a friend's house while they looked for a new home. But the memory of Ivan's wrath stayed with them.
I have nightmares all the time. I wake up about 2:15 every night, and I'm in there trapped in the debris under the water.
This isn't something that you get over right away. I have good days and bad days.
Most of all, they remember Arvie and her courage in the face of Ivan.
Through the whole thing, she was one of the bravest. She never whimpered, whined about anything.
Johnny says he's still not afraid of hurricanes, but next time he'll do things differently.
I use my brain a little bit better and get a little bit higher on higher ground. Because unless God's taking care of you, you won't make it.
How can you protect your home against storm surge during the onslaught of a hurricane that's Category 3 or stronger? The answer when Storm Stories returns. So how can you protect your home against storm surge during the onslaught of a hurricane that's Category 3 or stronger? Short answer, you can't. The best protection is to live away from the immediate coast. The second best protection is to build your home on stilts, high enough to let waves and surge move beneath the structure. This creates another problem, though. It elevates the home into a zone of higher winds, so wind damage could be more extensive. For Storm Stories, I'm meteorologist Jim Cantori. Your local forecast is next.
This is the worst storm in the history of the